Hello everyone, this is Jenna again, reading Hakim's A History of U.S., Volume D. This is Chapter 46, Johnson's Great Society. In the mid-20th century, the United States was thriving. We were called an affluent society. That means we were rich. Many Americans had cars, bikes, television sets, hi-fi sets, and hi-fi is short for high fidelity, meaning true sound reproduction. It is what everyone called stereo systems when they first became popular in the late 50s and early 60s. And everyone had nice houses. A lot of people. But some people were left out. Some people went hungry. They didn't get a fair chance to go to a good school or get a good job. Were they to blame for that? What should be done about poverty? The problem was as old as society and not easy to solve. Lyndon Johnson thought something could be done about poverty, and he meant to do it. He intended to build his great society. It would take money, the talent to get bills passed in Congress, and the leadership to make Americans understand that ending poverty would make everyone richer. Johnson revved up his jet engine personality and blasted away. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. It outlawed most discrimination, helping women as well as minorities. Head Start helped little children prepare for kindergarten. The Job Corps found work for people who were school dropouts. I'll read that next sentence in a minute. Over here it says, according to the Census Bureau, between 1960 and 1990, poverty was reduced by 39%. That's 22.2% of the nation's population to 13.5%. That was still too many poor people, but fewer than there would have been without anti-poverty programs. This picture shows that Johnson was determined to establish programs to eliminate the kind of poverty seen here in Alabama in 1965. Upward Bound helped needy children go to college. The Neighborhood Youth Corps trained unemployed teenagers. The Teacher Corps trained school teachers. Medicare helped old people pay their hospital bills. Medicaid helped those without much money afford a doctor. Johnson went to the Statue of Liberty to sign a bill that ended narrow, racist immigration quotas. Because of an immigration bill passed early in the century, only people from some privileged regions, like Western Europe, were able to come to the United States in large numbers. Just a few other regions, Asia for instance, were allowed to enter and become citizens. Johnson's new law let new groups of immigrants, especially Asians and Latinos, broaden the American family. The president began beautification programs and environmental protection programs. Congress and the president worked together. FDR had accomplished a lot during his first 100 days in the presidency. Johnson got even more laws passed. This picture up here shows that the Head Start program was designed to help needy families get children ready for kindergarten. And down here is the major Great Society programs. First is the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act outlawed discrimination in public facilities and employment in 1964. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act guaranteed voting rights for black people. Then there was the War on Poverty, which included Volunteers in Service to America, or VISTA. In 1964, VISTA sent volunteers into communities throughout the country to combat poverty through education and job training. The Food Stamp Program in 1964 provided aid to low-income families to help them buy groceries. Project Head Start in 1965 provided education, nutrition, and health services to children from low-income families. In the health section, there's Social Security Act of 1965, also known as Medicare. They provided federal funds to cover many medical costs faced by senior citizens, regardless of their income level. And in 1966, there was Medicaid, which helped provide federal funds to cover many medical costs for people who received welfare. In education, there was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965, which helped schools with a large population of poor children buy supplies and establish special programs. There was also the Clean Air Act of 1963, which provided federal funds to conduct research and create programs to control air pollution. There's also the Wilderness Preservation Act of 1964, which protects national forest wilderness areas. All the new programs cost money, but we had the money. We were a rich nation. Johnson knew that. We could afford the Great Society. We could afford the war on poverty. Until something else began taking most of our money. And that was the war in Southeast Asia. American soldiers were now fighting in Vietnam, but things weren't going the way we hoped they would go. North Vietnam was fighting back. That little nation didn't seem to be frightened by America's power. Being president had turned out to be harder than Lyndon Johnson expected it to be. His military and political advisors kept telling him to send more men and more weapons to Vietnam. But some of America's citizens were saying that the war was a mistake. They thought that we needed to quit the war. Johnson didn't like that advice at all. He didn't want to be a quitter. And then there was the black community. President Johnson thought the African American people and other minorities would be thrilled with the Great Society programs. And they were pleased. But they weren't satisfied. They wanted more. They wanted what everyone else had. They wanted to be equal partners in America. Why, they even wanted to vote. When it came to voting, Lyndon asked the African American leaders to be patient. He explained that it wouldn't be easy to get a voting act through Congress. Change would have to come one step at a time, he said. But some people were fed up with being patient. So this picture up here shows that a wounded U.S. Marine gunnery sergeant, Jeremiah Purdy, is led past a stricken comrade after a fierce firefight during the Vietnam War. And by 1964, the Vietnam War was costing the country $70 million a day. And that's it for chapter 46 in Joy Hakim's A History of U.S. Thank you for listening. This has been
Whip-a-dap. Very whip-a-dap.